Hey guys, welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Sam Bashor here with yet another one of my MCU rewatch breakdowns. Unfortunately, today's video of my Doctor Strange breakdown will be the last of the series since the lovely people at New Rockstars have already done breakdowns for all the other movies. That's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok, and Black Panther. You should go check those all out after this video. Please watch this video. I'd appreciate it. But I'm glad you guys enjoyed this series, and I'll find something else to do pretty soon. But that doesn't matter today. Let's take a look at the billion Easter eggs that are hidden within this film. Spoiler warning for Marvel movies, comics, TV shows. You know the drill. Let's get going with comic book Easter eggs. So let's kick it off with, who is Doctor Strange? Well, he first appeared in Strange Tales number 110 in July of 1963, and this wasn't his origin, actually. This was just hopping in right in the middle of his life and one of his adventures. We eventually do find out his origin and how he became the Sorcerer Supreme, which is pretty much the same as it was in the movie. They did a pretty good job adapting all of that. He was a doctor, he smushed his fingies, he needed help, he went to the Ancient One, he learned magic, and then he learned not to be a jerk. Hooray! But a couple fun facts. Doctor Strange's look is actually based on the actor Vincent Price, who Stan Lee and Steve Ditko were huge fans of. And actually, Stephen Strange's middle name is actually Vincent, as a nod, wink wink. Nudge, nudge, to, yeah, you got it. But moving on to the beginning of this movie, we're introduced to Kamar-Taj. Now, this is a fictional location in the comics. Apparently, it's in this world somewhere in Kathmandu, but in the comics, it's usually hidden away in the Himalayas. I also just wanted to give a nod to the magical whips we see in this movie. It's the main weapon that most of these sorcerers apparently use in the MCU. Normally, the Doctor in the comics sometimes uses a flaming whip as his main weapon. There are a few other weapons he likes to use as well, but I feel like this is the closest connection from comics to movie. Flaming whip. There you go. Now let's talk about Kaecilius, the main villain of this movie. Now, he first appeared in Strange Tales, Volume 1, number 130 in March of 1965. He is a villain of Doctor Strange way back when, and is actually an apprentice to Baron Mordo, because Baron Mordo usually has just been a bad guy. But moving on, let's talk about the Ancient One, who first appeared in Strange Tales number 110 in July of 1963. Pretty simple. He's an ancient sorcerer who lives in Kamar-Taj. He's been living there for centuries, and he teaches other sorcerers the ways of magic. Now, usually the Ancient One is an older Tibetan man, but the MCU tried to change this up a little bit because some people have claimed that the Ancient One is more of a stereotype. That's why Tilda Swinton was cast, to kind of steer clear of all of that. But moving on to when we actually introduced to Doctor Stephen Strange, we actually meet one of the most famous characters from one of the most important Doctor Strange comics, Dr. Nick West, or Nicodemus West, which is his official name, in Doctor Strange The Oath, one of the best Doctor Strange stories you should read. I highly recommend it. Now, he plays a very important sinister role in that story. In this, he's just a normal doctor that, you know, Doctor Strange and him kind of butt heads sometimes. There are a few other nods to the Oath in this movie, but I'll get to those in just a second. But let's talk about Rachel McAdams' character, Christine Palmer, who is the Night Nurse. Well, Night Nurse first appeared in Night Nurse number 1 in November 1972. Then moving forward just a little bit to when Doctor Strange is trying to teach himself to write once again, trying to push through all that nerve damage. This is actually a copy-paste from the comics, specifically a Doctor Strange run with J. Michael Straczynski. Also copying the comic, Strange tries to use all of his money and ends up using all of his funds to try to cure himself with normal means, but that's just not enough. But let's talk about Baron Mordo, who first appeared in Strange Tales number 111 in August 1963. Now, originally he, in the comics, was just a normal sorcerer, but then he turns evil, and he's been Doctor Strange's longest running adversary in the comics. His motivations, though, are different from the movie. At the end of this movie, we actually learn that he has kind of a clear path of what he wants to do. In the comics, he just and he runs off and plays with demons. Moving forward, let's talk about Master Hamir, or the fake Ancient One that we meet right off the bat when Doctor Strange goes into Kamar-Taj. Now, Master Hamir does appear in the comics. We actually find out to be the father of Wong. We'll talk about him in just a second. But let's move forward and talk about the astral plane, or the astral dimension. Now, Doctor Strange has been known to use his astral form many, many times in the comics. He even has this cool fight with the Hulk during the World War Hulk event. But the idea of the astral plane appeared in Strange Tales number 110 in July of 1963. Also, let's talk about the Dark Dimension. Now, the Dark Dimension was created during the Doctor Strange comic run way back when, and in this movie, the entire look of the Dark Dimension is actually directly inspired by Steve Ditko's art, who is the co-creator of Doctor Strange. But with this Dark Dimension reveal and the astral plane, we learn about infinite universes, or the multiverse. Now, Marvel Comics has dabbled with the multiverse many, many times. We're actually getting a multiverse-esque movie at the end of this year with the animated Spider-Man film starring Miles Morales. But with the introduction of the multiverse, this could open doors to basically anything. We could get any kind of Elseworld story we'd ever want. But as Doctor Strange flies through the Dark Dimension, we get a tease of Dormammu. Now, Dormammu first appeared in Strange Tales number 126 in November 1964. But to talk about his backstory, he's basically a demon from another dimension. That's it. You got it. He's a bad guy. But moving forward, we see the Eye of Agamotto. Now, the Eye of Agamotto first appeared in Strange Tales number 115 in December of 1963. We find out through history, that there was a sorcerer, one of the first ones, Agamotto, who created a bunch of very powerful objects, one being the Eye of Agamotto that sorcerers today actually use as a weapon to wield magic and cast spells. But moving forward, we're introduced to Doctor Strange's right-hand man, Wong. Wong first appeared in Strange Tales number 110 in July of 1963. Now, usually he is the manservant of Doctor Strange in the Sanctum Sanctorum in New York, but he can, perform some hand-to-hand combat. He's very proficient in that, and he usually has a very calm demeanor. He's not as stern and strict as he is in this movie. But moving on, we actually get some nods to other fun little Easter eggs from the Marvel Comics universe, like the Staff of the Living Tribunal. Now, the Living Tribunal is a being in the Marvel Comics universe, which first appeared in Strange Tales number 157 in June of 1967. Now, it's a bit of a bummer that the power of the Living Tribunal only can go into a stick that can collapse, because the Living Tribunal is usually the being that maintains balance across the entire multiverse. Think about that. That's a crazy job for a being to have, but then it got whittled down to a thumper. Also, we get a name drop, and we see later the Wand of Watum, which is just a normal wand that uses magics to collect them and, fire them to cast spells and attack people. You get it. But also, we learn that Baron Mordo is using the vaulting boots of Valtor. Usually, Valtor is a serpent deity in the comics. But moving on, we start to explore the Sanctum Sanctorum. There are some fun Easter eggs worth pointing out, like the helmet of Black Knight, who is a knight who fights, mystical threats in the Marvel Universe, which is very cool. Also, we meet the protector of the Sanctum, and this man is Daniel Drum, and this actually is a very cool connection to another Sorcerer Supreme from the Marvel Comics universe, who is Brother Voodoo. Now, Brother Voodoo first appeared in Strange Tales number 169 in September 1973. But back to the artifacts, we actually get to see and experience for a large chunk of this movie the Cloak of Levitation, which first appeared in Strange Tales number 114 in November of 1963. But moving forward, when the cloak tries to get Doctor Strange to pick up that random bondage locking system, don't worry, we'll come back to that in a second, you see him running for some axes, which is also a very popular weapon of the Doctor in the comics. But the system that he ends up grabbing, this has been confirmed to be the Crimson Bands of Chitterek, but normally this is a spell, not a device, that the Doctor uses very often in the comics. Now, I do want to point out this awesome fight between the evil Kaecilius minion and Doctor Strange, which is a direct pull from Doctor Strange the Oath. But now we're getting to the final fight of the movie, which is awesome for so many reasons, not just because of the visuals, but also it really sums up Doctor Strange in a really cool way. He's not usually the guy to run into a fight and punch somebody. He's the fixer, so he ends up reversing an entire superhero battle. Pretty cool, if you ask me. But moving forward, we get a cool name drop for the Infinity Stone, and that Doctor Strange was just kind of playing with it like it was a toy. And then to our first post-credits scene, let's give a shout out to the classic gloves that Doctor Strange normally wears. I'll talk about this scene more as we move into our MCU Easter eggs. Let's get going. Let's give a shout out to the Marvel 3.0 logo. This is the first time we've seen it, finally. It's so cool. Also, the mirror dimension is an original creation for this movie, but there are some inspirations from MC Escher's art and fractal concepts. Also worth pointing out that during Doctor Strange's intro in this movie, we actually see Avengers Tower in the background. We also see it later when Doctor Strange and Baron Mordo are facing Kaecilius and his minions. You see the Avengers Tower kind of fold in with the rest of the city. But speaking of the Avengers actually get a name drop from Wong as the heroes that protect Earth from physical threats while they protect it from more mystical threats, which is very cool. But moving forward to our Dormammu versus Doctor Strange scene, recently one of the writers of Doctor Strange has come forward to say that Doctor Strange may have been in there longer than we thought. He was in there long enough, confirmed by the writer, to become more of a master of his powers. So that's pretty cool. We only see about like 10 instances of him trying to bargain with Dormammu until he finally cracks and listens to Strange, but I do like the idea of him being in there longer than we think. And this kind of ties back to a fun theory about Groundhog Day, the Bill Murray movie that deals with time loops, which I'll come back to in just a second. Now let's talk about the first post-credit scene. Now this was actually directed by Thor Ragnarok director Taika Waititi, and this scene is in Ragnarok. You get two name drops to Loki and Odin, since Odin is missing and Thor and Loki need to find out where he went. Also, our second post-credit scene is kind of a tease to the sequel of Doctor Strange whenever that happens, because it hasn't been confirmed just yet, but Mordo has a new mission. He has taken the magic away from Pangborn. But guys, let's talk about some quick pop culture references before I have to go. Now, I thought this was kind of a fun fact, but Benedict Cumberbatch actually learned how to finger tut properly by J-Funk, who's a very popular dancer. You can actually just go to YouTube really quick. You're on YouTube watching this. You can just type in J-Funk after this video and check out some of his dance videos. They are very cool. Also, there's a bunch of fun references to Pink Floyd. You guys probably heard Interstellar Overdrive playing during the car crash scene where Dr. Strange messes up his fingies. Also, he's wearing a Pink Floyd shirt when he's trying to call up all the doctors to find a way to fix his hands. But speaking of the car crash, let's talk about the day that car crash happened. It actually happened on February 2nd. You guys don't know, if you live outside the United States, February 2nd in the United States is Groundhog Day. Coming back to the movie. Because in the movie Groundhog Day, Bill Murray's character has to relive Groundhog Day over and over and over and over again. Or recently, this theory has become very popular that Bill Murray was in this time loop for maybe thousands, at least hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years. That kind of ties back to this movie. Maybe Doctor Strange was in there for far longer than we thought. But shout out to the fan that was able to find this out, and Scott Derrickson confirmed it because Doctor Strange's watch actually stopped the day of the accident on February 2nd. Also worth pointing out that during Doctor Strange's first lesson with the Ancient One, she actually makes a real geometric pattern that is used in spiritual healing called a yantra. Now, these are usually used as energy centers. They create like spiritual portals or vortexes that allows for energies to heal you and helps with mystical teaching. You guys remember the scene when Doctor Strange is playing with the time stone and he's making an apple rot and then become a baby apple again and become an adult apple again? Some of the creators of this movie have stated that this is supposed to be a symbol for the forbidden fruit because Doctor Strange ain't supposed to be playing with that book. You're not supposed to play with time. More importantly, there is a joke running throughout this movie that you usually get the instructions for something after you've started using it or after you probably messed up with it. But at the end of this movie, this kind of pays off in a way that the writers didn't intend, but a very clever fan was able to find this. Notice at the very end of the credits, there is a warning to not text and drive. It's very dangerous. And that actually kind of ties in with the whole, you get the instructions at the end of the story because Doctor Strange broke his fingies during a car accident. And finally, let's talk about the Stan Lee cameo. He is on the bus during the mirror dimension fight, but what is he reading? Oh, just the Doors of Perception. It's a psychedelic book, talks about opening your mind and looking at the world through different lenses and whatnot. Guys, we made it. I hope you enjoyed all these Easter eggs and all the little hidden references I was able to find. This movie was a toughie. Hopefully I found all the ones you guys liked. If you guys learned something new, let me know in the comments or on Twitter at Sam Bashor. If I missed anything, you guys will, of course, let me know, and I appreciate it. Please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more breakdowns. We're doing some for Infinity War. We're gonna probably be doing those for a very long time, but also for The Walking Dead. When Westworld comes back, probably. You guys are gonna wanna know more about that. But make sure you check out new Rockstars news as well. I'm on that panel. It's a blast. Again, I'm Sam Bashor, and I'll see you next time.